Hey everybody, it's Virginia Reyna Dunne, and I am here in Marina Del Rey with Mark Jeffrey of Guardian Circle. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
I would like to know, how did you get into the world of crypto?
I got into it, well, the first time I heard about crypto was in 2011. So I heard it on a podcast, Jason Calacanis and This Week in Startups. Was talking to someone about it. My brain immediately went, that's interesting, but also it's not going to work because there was a thing called flus in the 90s. It was also crypto, well, it was not a cryptocurrency, it was a digital currency, and it did not work. And Whoopi Goldberg did commercials for it, and it didn't go anywhere. So it's like, this Bitcoin thing's not going to go anywhere. And then in 2013, it popped back up on my radar again. I heard a guy named Michael Turpin here in LA, and another guy named Brock Pierce talk about it, and both of them were very, very interested. And so I kind of had a moment where I was like, I better have a good hard look at this. So I kind of put my engineering hat on, because I'm trained as an engineer, and went and read the white paper and tried to work out what it was and how it worked, which took me a little bit of time. It was not kind of obvious right away. And all of a sudden I had that moment that a lot of people have where I went, oh my God, and understood what I was seeing. And just sort of, went from moment to moment where I was like, well, if I am understanding this, and this is true, then that means this. And this is crazy because that means this is huge. And it might be bigger than the internet itself. And I was, thinking what felt like crazy thoughts at the time. And then I saw an article where Mark Andreessen vocalized a lot of the same thinking that I was having. Mark Andreessen is the inventor of the web browser. So, this was sort of validation. And so in 2013, I kind of dove right into it, and that was how I got into it.
I feel like that's kind of how everybody feels when they finally realize, okay, this isn't something that's going away. It's like, how can I learn more? Yeah,
you sort of have this revelation where you realize that you're looking at the embryonic state of something that's as important or more important than the internet, and you just get this excited feeling and like, oh my God, I better understand this as fast as I can. So yeah.
So what led you to creating Guardian Circle?
So at the end of, when we do it, at the end of 2015, my girlfriend at the time had what appeared to be a stroke, and she's fine. So I always like to say up front, like, she's okay, she's fine. But she basically was on the floor of her garage, could not speak, half of her body was numb, could not really type. I happened to come home at a weird time and found her and brought her to the hospital. But afterwards, my brain started thinking, well, what if I hadn't come home? And what if she'd been there for hours? And I suddenly realized that, so my brain went, well, there should be an app where somebody could just, the way the world should work is you should just be able to press a button, and everyone around you who's available to help you, who's known as a friendly to you in some way, so, they're your neighbor, they're friends of yours, their family, that sort of thing. Those people are notified, and those people can instantly communicate with each other and share a location and coordinate a response to kind of, take care of whatever your emergency is. And I thought, well, this app, and somebody has to have made this app. And so I went looking around in the app stores trying to, download it for her. And I found that no one had made that app. A lot of people had made sort of similar apps, cosmetically similar apps that were basically panic button, push this button, and it sends a text message to all these people. And basically, when you work through how they work, they didn't really solve the problem. They did not organize the response for the person. And so once I realized no one had made the app I was thinking of, I said, well, I'm going to make it. So I started working on Guardian Circle end of 2015. We came out with it for the first version of it in early 2016. So we've actually had it out on iOS and Android for about 2 years now.
How does it work with the token that you have with it? Yeah,
so the first version of Guardian Circle was create a free network of friends, family, and neighbors for your emergencies, be they large or small. Very quickly, as I started studying, so this led me to start studying the emergency problem. And what I realized was, in the United States, we have 911, but it's pretty terrible. And there's a lot of things wrong with it, but probably the biggest one that everyone hears about first when they start looking into this is when you call 911, they have no idea where you are. They just, your information, your location information is not transmitted.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Uber can find you more easily than 911, which is, it's insane, right? Like, you just think like, oh my God, how can that possibly be?
I thought it pinged your phone or something like that.
No, because it hasn't been updated since the 60s.
Oh.
Right, so mobile phones came along and all these devices came out and all this innovations happened, but none of it has reached back into the government-sponsored 911 system. It just stayed the same. So the more I study that, the more I'm like, this is, in the United States, this is insane. We can do it a lot better with emergency response by using mobile devices and the cloud to sort of organize, not only to share location information, but also to find out what help is already near you, right? There are EMTs near you, there's equipment near you, there's people with skills near you. We should just, the cloud should, the way the world should work is wherever you are, you should just push a button, and the cloud should look down and see what people and resources are already near you, and then just push all that help to you as quickly as possible. So when you get there, you start realizing that friends, family, and neighbors are not enough. You have to have knowledge of strangers who have skills that are relevant to your emergency, and somehow enlist them and get them to help you as well. So whether you're in the United States or you're somewhere overseas, we haven't even talked about overseas yet, but overseas, I mean, most people on Earth, 6 of the 7 billion of us, have no 911. There is no magic number that you can call when you get into trouble. So, so our thesis was, we need to reinvent 911 from scratch. We need to just throw it all out, reinvent it for not only for the United States but for the entire world, and include all these other people who have skills in emergencies and motivate them in such a way that they are brought to bear on these emergency situations. So that's how we got to the token. So we came up with the idea of people staking their emergency alerts. So in other words, providing a bunch of tokens that sort of sit in a vault somewhere in an app. And when you hit the emergency button, those tokens are now up for grabs for the emergency responders that are in your area. So we have basically a routing algorithm on the back end in the cloud that looks around and sees what EMTs and security or whatever it is you need is already around you, brings them to you, and whoever shows up gets a piece of your treasure chest, if you will, right? So that's effectively how it works, and there's a lot more to it than that, but that's the basic idea.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, because I would feel like you don't want to give away your tokens unless you really have an emergency.
Right.
So you don't just call for pizza when you're hungover or something like that.
Right. So the idea is the way we've created the tokenomics for this thing is you stake however much amount of Guardium, which is our token, that you want to be made available during your emergency. And obviously the more you stake, the better your response is, and the more people come to respond to you, which sounds kind of unfair at first, right? Your brain's going, oh, so the rich are better protected than the poor. Technically correct, but we have ways to offset that. So you don't have to actually spend money to earn Guardium. You can invite friends, family, and neighbors to also download the app, and when they do, you earn a little bit of Guardium. So conceivably, all you have to do is help us market, basically, and you've earned your way to emergency response at the paid professional level, right? So you might not ever have to spend any money. We also are going to, in the future, have a way so that people in the developed world can send Guardium directly to people in the developing world, sponsoring their safety. So just like you sponsor a child, imagine sponsoring women's safety in India, that sort of thing. And because you're using a token, it doesn't ever go through the banking system. It doesn't go through an organization. It doesn't go through a government. So you know that it was not spent inefficiently or inappropriately. So, Red Cross in Haiti, we've all heard that story.
Right.
That can't happen here. So we basically want to create this, we have to create an ecosystem that works. So there has to be motivation for the emergency responders, but there are ways to craft it in such a way that there are opportunities for it to work for the rich as well as the poor. And everyone, and basically if we're successful, we'll create something which is 500% better than what we have now 80% of the time, right? So that's kind of the goal.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, and thank you for creating such a great app. I definitely think it's going to change our lives.
Well, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, and thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week.